My relationship has ended. Not many people want to talk about these things. I actually want to talk about the things that I wish I did differently. There's a lot of things and factors that came in the way. A lot of things need to change. It was excruciating, and I really wish that I hadn't done that. There's a lot of things to unpack there about self-doubt when it comes to breaking up because we just weren't happy. But I have reflections that I choose to examine now. Everybody's gonna be hurt. I wish we both asked more questions. My experiences. So my relationship has ended. Although I really don't want to do this episode, I think I actually owe it to my listeners, since this podcast already started from the beginning, where it's a safe space to talk about these things. To be honest with you, I never thought it was going to be this deep and this detailed into my life. The reason I started this podcast is to be able to create a platform where these things can be talked about, because not many people want to talk about these things, and not many people want to air out their dirty laundry. And for me, I don't think it's dirty laundry. I think it's important things that we need to look back on and examine. I actually want to talk about the things that I wish I did differently, things that I wish I knew, and things that I wish that if I had known back then would have maybe even saved my relationship. It's going to be difficult, but here we go. When we both knew that it was over, I think it was kind of like a long time coming, and we really tried to do as much as possible to keep the boat afloat and to try to keep everything, over water. I think we really did both try our best. There's a lot of things and factors that came in the way of us being able to deeply connect. My experience with this relationship has been it's created the most progression and growth I've ever been through in my entire life. And when I say progression and growth, it sounds positive and fun. It's actually been pain and suffering of heartbreak that has made me come to this point in my life where I realized that a lot of things need to change. There was a point where there was like a period of limbo, and it was excruciating. We both knew something was coming, but we both didn't really want to dive deep into it and bring it up. We almost really were hoping that it would just kind of go away. But I think he felt it as much as I felt it as well. And I would say I went through an array of self-doubt and self-gaslighting. You know, when you look back at a relationship and you romanticize all the good times, and you almost lose touch of why you're actually breaking up, start to blame yourself, and you start to think back and say, oh my God, maybe this is me self-sabotaging. There's so many things that you tell yourself to try to basically undermine the true feelings, and that's what I was doing. And I really wish that I hadn't done that, because I would have saved us a lot of time. And I'm going to open up a little bit more about that part of me that I need to actually unravel and speak about. There's a lot of things to unpack there about self-doubt when it comes to breaking up. I needed to understand that there's a reason that I was feeling that way, and there's a reason that he's feeling that way, and that is because we just weren't happy. And as much as you wanted to try to make it better or try to cover it up, there was deep rooted wounds in the relationship that just were there. And in order to have fixed those, we would have had to go back in time and fix ourselves individually, which is obviously impossible. But I think once I came out of this dark consciousness that is hugely driven by ego, and the ego hates to fail, the truth was I knew that it was a pattern of self-sabotage and mistakes that needed to be undone. I think that the self-sabotage comes from the fact that I was hiding a lot of me rather than just purposely sabotaging something that was good. I don't think that you allow something to be good if you are in a broken phase of you. You won't let it thrive, flourish, and become the healthy flower that it's supposed to be if you already are coming from a broken place. And this is not speaking just for me, speaking from both of us. The breakup was kind of manifesting itself for a long time, and I really chose to ignore it, and I chose to ignore a lot of signs, and I think he did too. And I'm really sad that we did that, because we spent a lot of time trying to avoid what really should have been going on, which is individually working on ourselves in the relationship, and then working on our relationship as a unit. So today I'm going to make this episode a vehicle to deliver to you some of the biggest lessons I learned from this breakup, And some of the hardest things that have manifested themselves through this pain into a lesson and into what is now becoming some of the biggest progression that I'm ever going through in my entire life. I would do a lot of things differently if I could do it all over again. And I'm realizing now how certain childhood experiences have manifested themselves into the relationship troubles, and they slipped under my radar when I wasn't being as self-aware as I should have been. And I wouldn't say I have regrets, but I have reflections that I choose to examine now, and experiences that I want to look back at, and ways that and to learn on which ways I could have handled things differently. Because I think, what is it, the point of pain and adversity, if we are not going to reflect back and try to examine what happened and try to find and derive the lessons that are going to make us a better version of ourselves? Otherwise, it's just a waste of time, and we are just going to keep repeating the same patterns and live in this loop. Now, the first thing I wanted to talk about, and I know this is crazy because a lot of people do these memes, and they say, can we normalize this? Can we normalize this? And it's like these funny memes where people are trying to normalize things. But can we just actually normalize breaking up? Go back and reflect on any time in your life when you've wanted to leave something, whether it's a relationship or a job or a friendship, or just even you wanted somebody at your work that you wanted to, let go of, but you were too afraid, or you were really just mortified by the experience and what you're going to feel. And it's like, we don't like rejection. We also don't really necessarily like rejecting others. It's a terrible feeling of forced confrontation that you don't really want to do. But I think that I was so shaken by the sheer idea that he was going to take it badly, or how his family is going to react, or what he was going to say when I would start telling him about the feelings of doubt that I had. And he could have had these feelings as well. I don't know. I mean, we just weren't really telling each other because we were both trying to protect each other's feelings. And in fear of the word divorce coming up, my fear was just eating me up inside, and it was deeply bothering me. But I was still in that relationship, deeply bothered. As much as I thought that I was kind of masking everything and, trying to move forward and just keep your head above water, actually, I'm pretty sure everything was showing in the actions, in the words, and the things that I chose to do in my day-to-day life in front of him. I'm sure he was able to see that. And I think that for him, it might have been even more hurtful, that would have created a distance. I wish I could go back to that woman who I was then and just shake her and just be like, it's okay. It's okay for things not to work out. It is okay to break up. It is okay to say you want to leave. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you this piece of shit who is sabotaging a relationship. You have to trust what your intuition is telling you. And a big part of this is also listening to your body. I used to hear it online. People are like, listen to your body. And I'm like, what does that even mean? But it actually means that your body is telling you that you're unhappy. There is a reason that you are feeling those feelings, and there is nothing more counterproductive and actually gonna, in contrast, create even more trouble than trying to drown the feelings that you're feeling on a day-to-day basis and move on and pretend like nothing's happening. It is all going to come out, and it's all going to explode, and it's not going to come out in the nicest way. Everybody's going to be hurt. You're hurt, he's hurt, the family's going to be hurt. Everybody's going to, it's like a earthquake. Everybody's going to be affected, but it is also the same exact thing when you are trying to mute true, deep, core feelings that you're feeling. So in a way, wouldn't you want to create a better impact of that earthquake where things first break and then get better for everybody? Or would you just want to keep things going with aftermath earthquakes forever? And that's exactly what it's like to hold in the way that you're feeling and hold in every single thought that you have, and you just sit next to the person, and little do you know, you're just building up this resentment, which is going to injure the relationship anyway. The second thing would be, I wish we both asked more questions. How many times have you sat down with your partner and actually asked each other questions? Not defend, not cut off, not, interrupt. When was the last time you've done that with your partner? I've been mentally practicing these steps as a habit every morning, checking in with myself and asking my body and my mind what I'm feeling, trying to tune into certain emotions and certain body parts. and doing like a full body scan to assess what is going on in the body at that moment and what exactly are you feeling. And a lot of times I was feeling a lot of like tension and almost like being suffocated. And I think what was suffocating me was my own emotions, with my own feelings that I was trying to not at all let out of their little cage. And that feeling, if I had checked in with myself and known that it was getting that bad, it would have maybe pushed me a little bit more to be able to just speak up. So if you're actually able to ask your partner any of these questions, I think it would be very vital to ask questions like, do you feel like we have enough fun together? Do you feel like we are deeply connected on an emotional level? Is there something you would like to change about our intimacy? Are you satisfied with our intimacy? Are you satisfied with the way that I listen to you? Is there something that you would want me to know that you've been afraid to tell me? Is there a past argument that still bothers you? Did I say something that hurt your feelings that maybe I can work on? How do you feel about the way we handle our social life as a couple? Do you think we go out enough and meet with other couples? Do you think we're being social? Is there anything that you're afraid to share with me? Like, creating that safe space for your partner would actually open up the door to figuring out early on if there are issues that are in the relationship, because the more this is going to simmer, the more it's just going to boil over. That was my experience. Is I really just was so afraid to say what I was feeling. We had such little time together sometimes. I didn't want to ruin the moment by being like, hey, this is bothering me, or I'm feeling scared, or I'm really worried about our future, or something's worrying me about my future. I'm feeling like my career is making me unhappy. How is your career going to manifest in us having kids? And how are we going to be able to deal with your career when you're away and we're going to have kids? Like, there's a lot of things that actually were going on in my head, but I was just sitting there quietly on the couch. And I regret that. The third thing is, nothing is worth you losing your independence. Nothing is worth you losing your independence. Nothing. And I say this, and I repeat it so many times, because I always used to think that putting all my eggs in one basket and pouring my entire love, heart, every cell in my body, that all of those chemicals, just everything, devoting my entire life, focusing and angling everything in my vision, tunnel vision on that person. I used to think that that is what love is, and that's how I could prove to him that I love him. And I have done this in the past too. It's not the first time. I would put duct tape on the mouth of the dreamer inside of me and just be like, shh, because I wanted so badly to be the good girlfriend or the good wife. But that is something that I now know is unfair on him as well as on me. It comes from also, by the way, this is something I learned recently, is that it comes from a compilation of experiences during childhood where you've had a toxic parent and you've had to surrender to all their wishes and believe what they want to believe in order to feel accepted. So you're constantly fighting for their acceptance. Later on, what happens is being this agreeable was the only way to keep peace in my house growing up. So whenever you grow up with narcissistic parents, your boundaries as a child are non-existent. Any boundary that you have would be bent and broken, and you would be dismissed. So this ended up in actually me internalizing, and this becoming a chronic self-blame that I lived with day to day. And I genuinely lived my life like feeling this excitement to prioritize the needs of others and their dreams rather than mine, and thinking that this is what I'm doing to prove that I love them. We have to unpack these things. As much as this is super damaging for the people pleaser, it is also damaging for the partner. In any relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, even a relationship with your sibling, it's so important to have a sense of self and a sense of autonomy and uniqueness and individuality. So learning to also communicate your sense of self and communicate your individuality and keep a line where your identity falls different than the identity of your partner is so vital. You should embrace your uniqueness, and so should your partner. He should definitely embrace your independence. And your individual identity should also be outside of the relationship, not within the relationship. The biggest lesson is it's not necessary to lose yourself in a relationship. Love doesn't always have to be a sacrificial act. And although that's what you learn as a kid with toxic parents, it does not have to be where you sacrifice your individuality and identity for the other person. And just to be clear, my ex-partner didn't ever ask me to do that. And I want to be clear about this. There wasn't a need for me to do that. It was just what I chose to do. And I really wanted to be with him, so I decided that I would be the one to pick up, leave my hometown. And I would already kind of think if I hadn't met him, I would have gone back, because I was already in that state of mind where I wanted to leave. But I think I would have gone back. But when I attached myself to him, I completely gave up my identity and my independence and just put everything into that world. And I was like, this is what's just going to drive me every day. And again, it's unfair. So I think love should be fair and equal, and it shouldn't be codependent based, and it shouldn't be based on abandoning yourself. Those are vital pieces of information that unfortunately I've learned after the pain of this breakup and another breakup. Again, there's been patterns here, and what is the point of repeating patterns if you're not going to actually learn from them at one point? I don't know about you, but I don't want to keep living the same exact hamster wheel and making the same mistakes for the rest of my life. The fourth thing, if you are unhealed, you will repeat those patterns. And, people do say, never say coulda, shoulda, woulda. But again, this goes back to the quote that I said in the beginning. An unexamined life is not worth living, because actually, you certainly should go back and say, I could have done that differently. I probably should have done that differently. Without self-deprecation and self-blame, you could totally take lessons from the past and write them down and try to figure out how you can reframe them and how you can give yourself the correct tools to not do and repeat those mistakes. If you don't want to meet that side of you that is making the mistakes, that is creating the errors and the patterns in your life, you are never going to do anything different. How can you expect the same result if you keep putting the same exact input? So if I was to actually give myself this advice, and to him as well, is find out what you want and find out what broken pieces lay in the foundation of whoever you are, and fix them first before you try to build on top of this big Lego piece with all the broken pieces on the bottom. You would only attract a healthy partner if you're in a healthy relationship with yourself, and then you can have a healthy relationship with him or her. So if you don't work on those things, how are you going to be able to bring positivity and the lack of codependency into a relationship? It's utterly impossible. There's no way you can meet parts of yourself that are in a dark consciousness that need to heal in a relationship unless you do it together and you're both on the same page. I genuinely believe that if you were broken and you met the person that is the right person for you, and if you had things that you needed to deal with, unless you deal with them together and grow together at the same rate, or just accept each other in your growth period, the relationship is going to be doomed. I kind of tried to say as much as I can, with as much as I can respecting, my ex's privacy. But I mean, I'm pretty sure, and I hope that since we share a child and we talk every day about her and how we're going to be able to help her understand what's going on and improve her life, and be able to give her all the tools for her to have the best emotional intelligence. I think he would want to hear this as well. And we've talked about this before on how we could both work on ourselves. I think he's going to therapy. We both wish the best for each other, and we're trying to navigate this while keeping Callie supported and happy and elevated, and not make her feel like she is being brought into any kind of war. So we've tried as much as we can to do this in that way. But you guys, sharing this with you, I'm right now in a studio, like talking to a camera. I'm so glad that thousands of people are not sitting here, because there's no way I would be able to say this. I just don't think so. Like, when I walked outside on stage, when I did my TEDx talk, I in Limassol, I honestly thought, what a mistake, because these are such deep and personal things to me. But when I see the impact that it creates, and when I see that there's at least one person out there saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing this. I have just gone through this similar thing, and I really resonate with your experience. And you've been able to help me. That gives me such a huge boost, and it makes me feel like I have an actual purpose. Now you guys know, but I don't think breakups need to be savage. I don't think they need to be immature, and I really do think that there is a way to do it where you're both cordial and have love and care for each other. What she sees every day is that we have love for each other, we love her, and we are consistent in loving her. We're consistent in trying to show each other support. So she knows no different. But what she would be extremely affected and hurt by would be what childhood experiences that have happened to me, which is a toxic, competitive environment where the parents are just fighting to try to win and beat each other at this unnamed game. So that's what we're really trying to do, and I'm really, really grateful you guys listened to this episode. It has been hard. It took me so long, and diving back deep now after I've done some healing has been hard. But please do let me know if you have any questions. This is what this podcast is about. This is a safe space for all of us. So thank you guys so much for listening. Long drives to late nights in your car. I remember it all. Windows down.